Jayo Gandharvika Giridhari Gaura Hari Jayo Gandharvika Giridhari Gaura Hari Jayo Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Ananta Dev Lakshmi Narasimha Jayo Ananta Dev Nitya Gaura Hari Bol Hari Bol, Nitai Gaura, Hari Bol. Shri Gandharvika Giridhari Sriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. Again, a very warm welcome to everybody for this morning's Srimad Bhagavatam short class. I again never forget to thank my leader who's giving me this service so that I can purify. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayana Namaskrityam Naranchaiva Narottamam Devim Saraswatim Vyasam Tato Jayamutire Nashtapaishu Abhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. This is reading from the verse from the Canto 1, Chapter 6, Conversation between Narada and Vyasadeva. We are continuing that, just moving to another section. Today's verse is 26. Someone can repeat after me?
Hare Krishna Prabhuji.
Yes, thank you. Namani anantasya hatatra papatan.
Namani anantasya hatatra papatan.
Guhyani bhadrani kratani chasmaram.
Guhyani bhadrani kratani chasmaram.
Gamparyam yatam stusta manogataspara.
Gamparyatan tushta managataspriha.
Kalam pratikshan vimuda vimatsara.
Kalam pratikshan vimado vimatsaraha. Thank you,
Mataji. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada. Srila Prabhupada ki jai. Thus, I began chanting the holy name and fame of the Lord by repeated recitation, ignoring all the formalities of the material world. Such chanting and remembering of the transcendental pastimes of the Lord are beneficiary. So doing, I traveled all over the earth, fully satisfied, humble, and unenvious. Purport, very small one. Please hear it attentively because every line is wonderful. The life of a sincere devotee of the Lord is thus explained in a nutshell by Narada Muni by his personal example. Such a devotee, after his initiation by the Lord or his bona fide representative, takes very seriously the chanting of the glories of the Lord, traveling all over the world so that the others may hear the glories of the Lord. Such devotee have no desire for material gain. They are conducted by one single desire, go back home, to go back to Godhead. This awaits them in due course on quitting the material body because they have the highest aim of life, going back to Godhead. They are never envious of anyone, nor are they proud of being eligible to go back to Godhead. Look at these both points. They are neither never envious of anyone, nor they are proud of being eligible to go back to Godhead. Their only business is to chant and remember the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord, and according to personal capacity to distribute the message to others, others' welfare without motive of material gain. Before I share a few words, we discuss, I seek prayers of all the senior Vaishnavas and the previous acharyas. Om Ajnanatimirandasya Jnananjana Shalakaya Chakshurun Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha. Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stapitam Yena Bhutale Swayam Rupa Gadamahyam Dadati Swapadantikam Vandeham Shri Gurum Shri Yudapada Kamalam Shri Gurum Vaishnavamscha Shri Rupam Sagrajatam Sahagana Raghunathan Vitam Tam Thajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishakan Vitamscha. Hey Krishna Karuna Sindhu Dinabandhu Jagatpate Gopesha Gopika Kanta Radha Kanta Namostute Tapta Kanchana Gaurangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Haripriya Vancha Kalpatarubhyascha Kripa Sindhubhya Evacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha. Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Kaura Bhakta Vrinda. Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna. Srimati Chaitanya Swami Tinamni Namo Acharya Pradaya Namo Hare Krishna. Again a warm welcome. Namani Anantasya Hatatara Prat Guhyani Bhadrani Kritani Chasmaram Gamparyatam Stustamano Gatasparam Kalam Pratikshan Vimuda Vimatsara. Again, a wonderful verse. Let me just share where we are on the Google point so that okay. Shri Gandharvika Giridhari Shriman Mahaprabhu ki jai. So, this particular slide, if you're able to see, we are in the 26th. So, 20th to 25th, the Lord instructs and consoles Narada. There is a separate section, 26 to almost 33, which is subdivided again, 26 to 28, as Narada started chanting and eventually met with death and got a spiritual body. So we are in that particular section. So just before that, we will have a very quick brief of what's happening now. Where are we? So we know that he was a young boy. His mother had passed away accidentally and he was orphaned. But before that, he had got blessings and he had learned about spiritual life from the Bhaktivedantis, the teachers. So he tested it during his studies. He starts practicing what he has learned. Then he actually gets darshan of Krishna. Appears, then disappears immediately. Why? Why did Krishna do that? Because he starts hankering for more, hankering for presence of the Lord. Okay, and he tries that again, the Lord does not appear. Then what has happened? He hears from the Lord. What is the Lord telling him? He is not yet perfect. Can you imagine? Not telling Narada Muni, you are not yet having enough love for me. Spend more time. Okay. So Narada is enlivened, hearing the Lord's voice. Again, the Lord disappears. So why was this entire exercise? Because he wanted Narada Muni to start hankering for the Lord more. Okay. From this being the background, let's get on to today's verse. What did Narada do after he got Krishna's mercy? Right? So what was his, how does one feel? What are the symptoms? How can we see who has achieved the Krishna's mercy, or what are the effects of that person who experiences Krishna? How can we know he's got Krishna's blessing? So here, what is the very beginning, Srila Prabhupada writes in the purport, a life of a sincere devotee is thus explained in a nutshell by his own personal example. What is Narada Muni did as a young boy? He kept doing what he was doing. Right? So this section is specifically insisting us is that continue to do what you're doing, have patience and work on two important aspects, humble and non-envious. That is cutting down, work on your pride and how to be non-envious. Okay. Two effects it's had on Narada Muni. He says, got free of false pride and got free of envy. The entire few sections says that, but here in this two specifically, he says, actually it is three. He also says, as fully satisfied, right? Now, normally in life, if you see, there are two very strong emotions, lust and love. Okay. Both can make a person oblivious of the surroundings. Okay. Make him fearless, or should we say shameless. People can act anyway, right? We all know the wonderful example from the Bhagavatam, pages of Bhagavatam, that Ajamila was a victim of lust, right? He became shameless. Okay. You all know the story. He had to bring in, after sighting a prostitute, he had to bring the house. This is where he, in his case, he was also abandoning all the formalities, but in the very wrong way, did not consider the surroundings, the family, the entire public. Nothing it bothered him. Because of what? I told you, a very strong emotion. It can make him fearless, or in a way shameless. Now, Srila Prabhupada uses here, and in the translation, he says, right, leaving all the formalities. But in Narada Muni's case, it's different. What he was doing, he was going around glorifying Krishna, glorifying all the activities of Krishna. Now, the difference is that he was overcome by love of the Lord. Okay. When he was traveling, he says he was not it's clear that he did not have any material desires. There is a big difference between Narada Muni's feeling of, not following the formalities of the material world, and the example which we took in Ajamila's case. So when somebody is conducting this entire thing with one single strong desire, right? Even in the previous Sunday's class, His Grace Premdatta Prabhu was giving a wonderful example. A child who's focused on IIT is not concerned about many other small distractions. So here, the focus is just simply one single focus, going back home, back to Godhead. If you have that focus, right, all other seems in a way very small. Like they say, a person in the army, right? A person after fighting is in the warhead, right? He sees death, he sees bullets being fired all around, and somehow, after the entire he survives the entire war, comes back home, back to his village, and then it's so peaceful, and then he just walks out and he sees two people fighting for maybe a petty thing like water or something. He'll say, what is happening to you all? Okay, are you fighting for such an insignificant thing? It's something like that. When you are focused, when you are wanting a particular desire, all other but all other things during your path should be absolutely, the focus should be so centric on what you have to go. All other doesn't seem to bother you, right? So here, the two important points: not envious of anyone and not being proud of, also eligible to go back. This is very nicely said. He is, first of all, not envious, and also not being proud that he is eligible to go back. Because the moment you take initiation, here it says you start chanting, right? You start chanting the glories. In fact, in the 13th chapter, very recently we were doing, where Krishna starts explaining about the entire Kshetragna. I think in the 8th verse, Krishna gives various 8 to right up to 12. There are various points he gives. That is process of acquiring knowledge, right? In that, the very first one, Amanvitvam, humility, okay, and pridelessness. During our Bhakti Shastri classes, I got even better meaning of humility. Of course, we all know what is being humble, but he said becoming a perfect gentleman to respect others. Okay, that is the first one. Pridelessness, the second, and many other things. And Krishna goes on and says, I declare, apart from these, nothing else is knowledge. The rest of them are ignorance. The very ISKCON's the Shishtashtakam given by Mahaprabhu, the very third verse, which seems to be our entire important verse, Trinadapi Suni Chena, Tarorapi Sahisuna, Amaninan Manadena, Kirtaniya Sadahari. That is also based on the one simple fact that chant the holy name in a very humble state of mind, thinking oneself to be lower than the straw in the street. One should be more tolerant than a tree. Divide of all false prestige and should be ready to offer respect to others. See how many points are there in just this packed verse. In such a state of mind, one can chant the holy name constantly. Okay. So what was Narada Muni doing? Traveling everywhere. Actually, if you see a normal karmi cannot even cross the material world. Maybe if you take up Jnana Yogi, maybe he'll go beyond up to Brahma Jyoti. Again, very confused. But whereas Narada Muni could travel anywhere, whether it was upward or even right down to demons. He could go and preach to demons also, right? He didn't have, and he says he was fully satisfied. Where do we see, I mean, what, how do we identify these people? When we see such devotees who are not proud, not envious, we need to immediately identify that they have Krishna in their hearts, right? I have this classic example. There was this wonderful picture of His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj. I think the previous day, he was giving a lecture. Not even the previous day, I think the same day, he had given a lecture, a huge youth program being organized. If I recollect right, over 500 people giving wonderful class. After that, enthusiastic class made everybody else finish, completes that, comes to airport, sitting quietly on the floor and doing his, I think he was doing his japa. What a picture it is. All other executives sitting, showing off their laptops or, sitting on the chair. And there is this such calm, such wonderfully sitting just on the floor in one corner, waiting for his call to catch an airport back to wherever his base was. So the point is, we can see that he was fully satisfied. He had the empowerment of Krishna. There was humbleness all through, from the top to the bottom, and absolutely non-envious, needless to say. Why? Even if we can take an example of Gaur Gopal Prabhu, I'm sure many others, even the non-ISKCON team is very aware of this gentleman. They all call him the Shah Rukh Khan. I mean, why Shah Rukh Khan? Even more than that. Amongst the motivation groups, TED groups, wherever he's present all the way. Okay, he's treated as almost a hero. But I was hearing one lecture in which they had told his very close friends were telling that nothing has got onto his head. All the success around, all the time cameras waiting for him and things like that. He still attend Mangalarati wherever he is. He's still as humble as what he was at the beginning of Krishna consciousness, and absolute pride is not seen anywhere. So it's coming from a very close set of friends who are always with him. Right. So this is where, when we see people like this, we can understand that they have Krishna in their heart, and they have they've been empowered. They are so grounded, and they are having these qualities which is all over on them, fully satisfied, humble, and non-envious. And still, as Prabhupada writes, their only business is to chant and remember the holy name, fame of pastimes, according to their personal capacities, and distributing the message for others' welfare without any material gain. Now, when we are going to the last section of the two points which are mentioned here. Now, this personal capacity or coming out, even just in last class, I said, His Holiness Radhanath Swami Maharaj says, actually, he says, Bhakti begins only when you come out of comfort zone. Now, imagine if His Divine Grace A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Srila Prabhupada, he could have very well at his age sat down in Vrindavan, and he perfectly knew all the methodology of going back to her Godhead. But he came out of that comfort zone, right? He just to carry out the orders of a spiritual master. Imagine he going at that age, going all over the world, traveling, making more than 100 odd temples. And look at the disciples of Srila Prabhupada. They are not, do you think by any standards, our dear Guru Maharaj is following anything, being comfortable? I mean, the very fact that his going and sitting in an airport is such an ordeal for him. If you see that, you will understand what kind of troubles our dear Guru Maharaj is also taking, traveling all over the world. And just to ensure that this message is distributed, just to see wherever he goes, how can I initiate my more disciples? How can I help my Guru? So I would definitely want to stop here and share my personal example of how, preaching has helped. So it is as always, our dear leader used to, in the initial days, personally call me and said, you can speak English, why don't you please preach? I used to understand, why is he reaching out to me? I mean, there are such wonderful people in the team. The last thing I wanted to is, I was very happy being in the satsang, wonderful people, let me understand and read Shastras. That's what is my interest. But then constantly he was saying, after that, when I used to travel to a little far off place, for me those days, I was considering that as far. Now I think how silly I have been compared to the entire parampara which we are in and the tall leaders we have. So the point I'm trying to say is that when initially it looked that, we are traveling somewhere, what is this I am saying? I don't know what. But look at the miracle. Krishna has inspired so many other souls in other far off distance. And now, wherever I go, at least, if I see a young couple, the first thing is, it is not because Mathurapati Prabhu is told that we feel like immediately going to him and say, have you visited this temple, or feel like giving a card and asking them to chant or asking them to come to the temple. So we definitely need to come out of our comfort zone and do this, because that could help someone. Because we have got all this benefit, we have to continuously do this. So coming out of comfort zones, why do we keep asking, have a small reading group, have a small, in your own apartment, do something, reach out to nearby places. If you have an opportunity, jump in. Okay, now we understand that how important it is to not just continue to do. Yes, this verse definitely talks about, Narada Muni is insisting that continue to do all those tiny things every day. Sometimes your punctuality, your sadhana, everything depends on doing those small things, reading, maybe chanting, hearing, all this, everything promptly continue to do, lage raho types, keep on doing this. Definitely you will do, because we have seen the symptoms, we have seen the realized souls, how they have felt Krishna. We also, if we continue on the same path and start feeling satisfied, bring in more humility, and of course, needless to say, need to remove the false pride. If you continue to do all this, definitely we will experience Krishna. And of course, if you hanker for Krishna more, like Krishna said, right, when the gopis asked, which type of lover are you? He said, I am the last. I am the fourth type, where I like to see my devotees hankering for me. If he sees that, they will invite you. It's like, going back to Premdatta Prabhu's example, when you are somewhere in the army or performing, they call you for this medals from the Indian government, right? For having achieved they will identify you the same way Lord will identify. You don't need to worry about wanting to have darshan of Krishna or experience Krishna. Krishna will start reciprocating to us. So by saying this, I would like to end with this last 2 lines. I like to read this. It is their only business to chant and remember the holy name, fame, and pastimes of the Lord, according to personal capacity to distribute wealth, the message of others' welfare without motive of material gain. Okay, so we all have a responsibility having been in this wonderful parampara, that we need to also share this wonderful, blissful opportunity which we have called Krishna consciousness. Hare Krishna. I stop here. Thank you very much. And I open it out for others to share the views or any questions on today's few points which we discussed. Thank you very much, Prabhuji. You can also add and guide me. Hare Krishna.
Shrimad Bhagavatam ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki jai, Gurudev ki jai.